Hello, this is American Contractor. Today's 22 April 2014. This is a special video I just made for you guys, and hopefully you'll pay attention here and read this report that I'm getting ready to talk about. The report that I want to talk about is called the Iraqi, the Finance Committee Report on Banking System Reform Requirements in Iraq. It's dated February 2014. It was written by the Iraqi Council of Representatives Finance Committee member Mohammed Ahmed Jawad. He's the financial advisor. This is an excellent report, and I just want to talk about this report because it really gives you the actual outlook of what's going on in Iraq as far as the banking industry. Just 7 chapters. I'm not going to bore you with all this stuff, but just going to go through this report because there's some things I just want to point out. These are all the names of the Finance Committee members. There's about 10, 12 there. We'll just keep on going here. The results of this report include the need to create banking legislation, appropriate development, and to the need for banking services, the need to employ modern banking systems, giving larger role to private banks alongside the public banking sector. Just different chapters. There's 7 chapters in here, and I'm just going to go through this article. The topics that they covered on this, the following topics. They need to amend the banking law, CPA law number 94 from 2004. It's got a lot of shortcomings in there, and they need some more, just better banking law, which we all know that. They haven't passed it yet. They need to talk about Islamic banking law, evaluating banking technology in Iraq, the need for drafting a law that covers it, and its relationship to electronic commerce. You're going to see very shortly here where they're going to get their software up to speed where they can communicate from one bank to any bank in the world and be able to, transmit money and do remittances. So, about increasing the capital of Rafidin and Rashid banks through the issuance of government bonds. They try to do this. They were going to do it, but they put it off on the back burner. And probably 2015, maybe 2016, they'll start doing this. The workshop reached the following recommendations. The first one is, we just talked about it, is the amending the banking law. They need to do this so they can get everybody on the same page, because some banks are operating different than other banks. Promote the merger of large and small banks. The smaller banks haven't reached their capitalization the CBI is recommending. Then they need to merge with other banks so that they can be able to do that. Establish a deposit insurance corporation. Right now in Iraq, there is no FDIC like there is in the States. When you deposit your money in an Iraqi bank, you do so at your own risk. Support the central bank's decision to increase banks' capital. Open letters of credit in public and private banks. Clear the way for forming state agencies in collaboration with private banks and allowing funds to be deposited into them within the limits. Like I said, these are the recommendations. Developing the banking sector technology. Apply the principle of Basel I, Basel II, and Basel III. Apply the international accounting and government standards. Create a committee of members from the Finance Committee and a number of experts in charge to the following implementation of these recommendations. The recommendations were drafted, and the most important are the following. Forming a banking oversight authority attached to the Council of Representatives. Restructuring the General Inspector's Office in the central bank and attaching it to the Banking Oversight Authority. Pretty amazing. They've been doing this for so long, in 10 years since the Iraq War started, that they don't even have an inspector general overseeing the central bank. Monitoring the restructuring of state-owned banks. Introducing modern methods like the comprehensive system and credit cards to banking, modernizing it in accordance with international technology. Giving the boards of directors of banking broader decision-making powers. Choosing the professional competencies for leadership in the banking industry. Clearing the way for private sector banks to open letters of credit. easing the procedures for opening foreign bank branches and removing the complications in government offices, holding a symposium on banking reports, the role of auditors sponsored by the finance committees, and inviting the central banks and accountants and auditors syndicate. A visit to the Dubai International Financial Center to learn about their experiences and expertise. Preparing a report that explains oversight, methods, and banking matters and principles to enable the finance committees to draft banking-related legislation. Okay, now there's still 54 banks in Iraq. 7 of them are state-owned, 479 branches, and 8 are located abroad. This is total. 7 state-owned banks, 479 branches, 8 are located abroad. Now the private banks, there's 47 private banks, 23 of them are commercial, 12 Islamic, 12 foreign. And out of those, 515 total branches and 4 branches abroad. The capital in private banks is 5.9 trillion Iraqi dinars. This is the capital that's inside the private banks, 5.9 trillion Iraqi dinars. This is the percentage of the banking system's capital by sector. The private sector is in blue, and the public sector, which is the state-owned banks, are in red. Now you can see who owns most of the capital, who has most of the capital in their banks. It's a list of the banks. Now, before we do this, right now I just want to say bank deposits. This is Investopedia. This is their definition of bank deposits. It's money placed into a banking institution for safekeeping. Bank deposits are made to deposit accounts at a banking institution, such as savings accounts, checking accounts, and money market. This is not assets. This is not, you hear people talk about, it's total assets. It's not banking deposits. Well, right here, this list showing you bank deposits. In 2012, 33.2 trillion Iraqi dinars. Then savings deposits were 7.9 trillion Iraqi dinars. That's physical cash in the bank, 7.9 trillion. This is deposits and the credits. As you can see, deposits are more than the credits because the banks are not loaning out any kind of money, because it's a lot safer for them to put their money in the CBI, where it draws interest on the 7-day or the 14-day interest program, and they're not loaning out any kind of money because they don't know how to do the risk aversion, credit loaning. You got more deposits and less credit. A lot safer for me to put my money in the CBI and earn some interest, 5%, I believe it is right now, 5% interest, than loaning it out to somebody and have them pay, 9-10%. They just don't know how to do that. And this is just different pages of the articles of the report. Here's talking about the currency auctions, and there's 2 main important things I want to talk about here. Is why they do the currency exchange. Number 1 is the exchange rate stability between the dollar and the dinar. And the next number 1 thing that they do that's very important is they building up reserves of foreign currency by US dollars. Because they sell US dollars and they buy Iraqi dinars, because I just showed you that the private banks are flush with Iraqi dinar. So they sell Iraqi dinar back to the CBI and then exchange for US dollars, which is the hard currency. Every time you hear and talk about hard currency, they're talking about US dollars. So we'll talk about here existing deposit facilities. There's a banking reform strategy, which I won't bore you to death. I'll just go through this really quick. Procrastination in issuing legislation that moves reform forward. And lack of clarity in the economic vision and policy, lack of coordination between financial and monetary policy. What this is, folks, is the important cause of delay in the process of banking reform can be summarized as what we're talking about right here. Implementing plans for reform prepared without the input of banking experts and specialists. And I'm just gonna go through these really quick. You can just read it. The field has not been opened up for banks to engage in investment and financing, giving banks maintenance of high liquidity. It goes back to that graph where there's a lot of deposits and not enough credit going out. And This talks about the lack of domestic vision for the future of the banking reform process. The interrelation between the different relevant authorities and the different relationships between the CBI, the Ministry of Finance, the private banks, the state banks. They all have, they're all on the same page. Administration, domination, and the subordination of state-owned banks and their board of directors. Administrative corruption and bureaucratic behaviors within the banking institutions. The general state of the Iraqi market and the macroeconomy. To date, we have not yet reached the necessary level of transactional transparency. Not really transparent with their stuff. Caution and distrust continue to hinder people's interaction with banks. They still prefer to deal in cash instead of checks, while instability has prevented the expansion of automated transactions such as spread of ATMs and use of credit cards. There's only a few banks in Iraq that have credit cards, and even then they don't even work very well. So people don't even use it. You can't even walk into a store and use a credit card. Due to the slowness and ineffectiveness of the reform process, costs and the communal financial burdens have gone from bad to worse. And the administrative desires have been forced to succumb to the pressures that these costs and burdens have produced. And this goes to the Basel agreements and what they're all about. So get a chance to read all this. Islamic banking, which I'm not going to go through too much about this stuff. This is a very interesting read. Like I said, get a chance to download it. And these are the recommendations. I'm just go this really quick. You can just go ahead and stop the video and read this, or you can just download the report. Just hit the highlight some of this stuff. Forming a commission for bank supervision oversight to oversee banking and financial institutions. This commission shall be attached to the Council of Representatives. So there's going to be a lot of committees overseeing the banking operation in Iraq. Like I said, I'm just going to highlight some of this stuff. Actually, you can just stop the video and just read it. But basically, establishing a company to guarantee the deposits in a private bank, as well as establishing a company to guarantee credit. They don't have an FDIC in Iraq, so when you deposit money or have any kind of dealings with an Iraqi bank, you are at your own risk. The Islamic law, for Islamic banking laws, they're non-existent right now in Iraq. So that's why they want to amend that CPA order so they can get that changed. And they want the Islamic banks to own, like real estate, buildings, different stuff, movable assets like cars, be able to loan money on cars. They don't do that now, but in fact, none of them do. But hopefully in the near future here, very shortly, they will. Encouraging banks to open additional branches and banking houses in all of the Iraqi provinces to increase the rates of banking density. The industry standard is one bank for every 10,000 people. In Iraq right now is one bank for 45,000 people. Creating a future plan to achieve mergers between private sector banks to create large banking blocks that can occupy an important space in domestic banking work. They just need more banks to come into Iraq and start opening up and start doing business, especially a Western bank. Just some more recommendations. I'm just going to go ahead and go through this really quickly. I just hit the highlights what I think should be talked about. Increase the private sector banks' amounts of letters of credit and permitting them to accept government deposits and securities drawn by government circles. Like I said, the Ministry of Finance does not deal with private banks at all. They don't loan them credit. They don't loan them money, nothing. They only deal with the state banks. And this is a very interesting report. I hope you get a chance to read it. And they're going to have a banking union in Iraq. So we'll see. strengthening the concept of quality management and integrating it into banking operations by designing. They need to get up to the international standards. That's their goal anyways. And build qualified bank managers and bank leaders. And implementing the best practices and international standards to achieve more integration within the economy. They just don't have a good grasp of how they're supposed to do banking in the 21st century, and that's why they do these workshops and travel around the world. These are the sources of the report, and appreciate you watching this video. I know it's a little bit longer than I usually do, but thank you for taking the time. If you visit theamericancontractor.com, I do put out the best information in the Iraq community. Appreciate you joining my mailing list. Just go to the AmericanContractor.com website and put in your first name, put in your best email address, and join. If you want to visit the Rigo Gold, it's a place where you can get information about gold and silver. Look at the top of the website. It's called Rigo Gold. Just click on that and just go there and just check it out. Send you a free information packet you can fill out, and just put in your name and email address and that Riga Gold at the top of the website, and just go ahead and put your information there and get an information packet. And thank you very much for watching this video.